Another round of applause for Antonio. You got me in my feels again. That's like the third time I've seen this movie. First thing I want to ask, where did you get the beautiful setting for your film?
This is the countryside of Portugal. I'm from nearby it, and so when I was thinking of making a movie about it, I knew that I wanted to show, my culture, my home. And I had lots of thoughts of whether I was gonna do it in English instead of do a different setting, and I'm able to kind of translate that. But then I thought, no, fuck it, I'm gonna do it in my hometown. It's my hometown is near there, and also the council of this region, they helped us a lot to get, and the people went crazy because we're shooting a movie there, and so they helped. They opened up all the doors, and like we shot in their houses, and then the council helped us shoot everywhere there, so that's why as well.
Oh, that's great. I had been reading that for the film, you went through some funding, some labs, what was the process for that like, in order to get it fully funded?
Yeah, it took a long time, like all the low budget filmmaking takes a lot of time, and I wrote the story, had a treatment, and I took it to the Torino Film Lab. It's like in Italy, and basically spent a week with the tutoring and like in beautiful island in Italy, and that was great. And they also helped a lot in constructing the story and figuring out the characters really. So that was one, and then played us on got to the second stage of the Sundance Development Lab, then also got the first cut lab, and so labs were a good way to kind of get the project going and also give a bit of a stamp of approval. So then when, I brought the movie to producers and to other people, then they were like, oh, it seems like there's already some stamps here, and it's able to look like the project is a bit bigger than it actually was necessarily.
Oh, that's great. So during that process, when you first started with the script, how much of it changed from the beginning of it and then through the transitions and meeting with other people?
I think I wrote because of the deadline for the Sundance Development Lab. I had like 10 days and I just cracked on. I just had really cracked on, like kind of writing the script. So the first draft was of course very raw, but still I wanted a lot to work with the actors and bring the actors in, and kind of, because we shot the movie over 1 year, we tried to do kind of Boyhood style where we shot throughout the seasons. And so for me it was important to also allow each season to inform the next one in a way, even though it was all pre-written. Once we shot, sometimes you understand certain things are more important than other things, and you start to focus and you start to really see what you should give value to. And a lot of things kind of changed throughout the process. I think was one of the things I wanted to do as well with the actors.
So about the seasons, did you always have summer meant to be empty, or did you have something written originally?
No, I always wanted that the kid sun doesn't come for summer. I wanted that gut as well feeling when the audience sees it. It has happened a lot of times when the summer comes, and the train, nobody's there. People you can feel it in the audience, and so.
Yeah, nobody getting off the train, that definitely has an impact.
Yeah, and so that was definitely, actually that wasn't shot though like that, that's what's interesting. So initially, summer was we just had the summer, and then straight away autumn, like the titles just saying that. And then on the edits, I saw that shot that we had gotten from something else, and we couldn't fit it into the movie. And I was like, oh, okay, I know where to put it. That would be the thing. So it kind of actually came a little bit late to the shot itself, but I always knew that the character doesn't come in summer, and that makes it even harder for the parents.
Yeah. So the entire film is family drama. What inspired it? How much of this is you? How much of this is just pulled from the air?
I went to London, like the character, from Portugal to study, and not to be a doctor, but to be a filmmaker. It's a slightly different. No, but I think when I went there, and then every time I would come back and I would talk to my parents, would ask me like, how are you? And even though sometimes things were a bit hard, you know, and things were not always as easy, I'll always be like, yeah, good, you know, the typical kind of behavior. And my parents would also say the same when I asked them how they were doing. They were like, yeah, good. And with time, I understood that, you know, not good. we were all kind of hiding some things. And also then I kind of talked to a lot of my friends and colleagues there, and everybody who had left, we kind of had the same stories. We were all, some people had got home and got replaced by a dog, and that kind of gave me some ideas. And I thought, okay, so I see that it's actually quite universal, this thing, and a lot of people are going through it. So that's what kind of led me to think, you know, this could be actually a good story. I remember the tattoo part was somebody else that said that they made a tattoo, they were super scared of showing to their parents, and then eventually when they gained the courage to like finally show, the parents didn't even see it. So I was like, okay, you know, I want to kind of put those things, and so it was something I grabbed from my life, but also a lot of people that I knew and kind of were going through similar things, and I kind of put it all together.
Yeah, there was a lot of themes going on. You have, you know, the son finding out who he is, his independence, the father kind of remembering the days of his adventures, the mother trying to figure out what to do once there's an empty nest, you know, and the daughter trying to pursue something that's not necessarily medicine, something off the beaten path. And so that's a lot of characters to write, and I think you did a wonderful job on stage. It was really done well. Actually, I wanted to ask, one of my favorite scenes, it almost comes out of nowhere, but it fits so perfectly, is the beach scene. Where did that come from? Because it was so beautiful. It takes a second to kind of figure out what's going on, and then after you do, and then it looks so great. But what stuck with me is the mother as she's carrying her boy.
Yeah, I think that at first I wanted to focus on all the characters, like you said, the family, that everybody has their own story, because I think sometimes in a lot of these movies we see only one perspective, you know, either we see the parents or we see the kids, the people who go away or the people who stay, and here I kind of wanted to see both perspectives. And so I wanted to focus, you know, like you have the kid as well that comes back, and suddenly only later on he starts to appreciate the home that he left, you know, and those elements I think for me were important to show all those things. And that scene I think was something that I remember actually came to me when I was kind of half asleep on a plane going to London, and I remember I just had this vision. I was thinking about the story, and I was thinking about like how can I show the theme visually, that I remember that's very specific in my head. And that kind of image just came of the mom suddenly, you know, the kid growing in her hands, and kind of every time we cut and the kid is older and so quickly. And also the idea of the dad, you know, is saying everything's going to be fine, everything's going to be great, because I think that's, you know, a lot of us tend to do that, try to be as positive as possible, but sometimes in an unrealistic way, you know, and at least don't put in the effort to achieve that. And so I think that image stuck with me as well, that the father, not only the kid is growing in her hands, but also the father keeps going away and keeps walking, and the father is like free and doing his own thing, but the mother is the one that stays behind and stays kind of a bit left, because I think that was one of the as well major themes of the film, was I feel like in a general way mothers get more of that pressure, you know, because they are the ones that deliver the baby, they're the ones that have a bit more pressure to take care of the baby. And so they end up a little bit more left behind sometimes by even society, that leaves them behind, you know, from workplace and from other things, because they go to take care of the kids. And so for me, I wanted to kind of give a little bit, I see the movie as kind of a love letter to all the parents and their sacrifices that they go through for the kids to fly. And I feel like that was seen encapsulated a bit there.
No, definitely. I'm going to call my mom after this. I hear that the mantra throughout where it's, if they're happy, we're happy. And then as the seasons go on, it's kind of like, yeah, if they're happy, we're happy, but they almost don't believe it themselves. Yeah. I'd like to take this time to open it up to the audience, if there's any audience questions. Yes.
Yeah, I had a question also connected to the beach scene. When it popped up in the movie, part of me was almost expecting more non-linear time, like flashbacks or things like that. I was wondering, did you have any thoughts about kind of going chronologically in a non-linear area in any other parts of the film? somehow that one flashback like left me wanting more changes in like the chronology of it.
Yeah, I wanted just that one specifically because of feeling like that the family is now in the present and that's what they're suffering, and they still are not able to cope with the past and all that they've done before. So it feels like in a way they've been hiding kind of all that thing. And only in that moment I wanted the audience to kind of get a little glimpse into why the situation is like this as well, and kind of understanding, they did have a life before, they did live, not necessarily in such a isolated place, because that was a big part of the movie, is that they're in such an isolated place there. And so that's why I only thought of it through that specific element. Because the idea originally was actually, without even that flashback, originally was just we stayed 1 year with the characters, and we see just every school break, they kind of come back, like in the movie. But then that flashback I thought was like an important addition to add for that.
Any other questions? Yes.
I noticed at the beginning of the movie there were a lot of long takes and very like smooth camera things going on, and then over the course of the film there's more cuts, and I just wanted to know if that was intentional, or what was your thought process behind the cinematography?
Yeah, that was definitely intentional. That was the idea was that in the beginning, kind of the camera, the family is always in the same camera. That's why it was like steady cam, and it's one shot, and it feels very flowy, and you can feel the chemistry, the dynamic of the people. And it's like it progresses. It goes a little bit more handheld for a while, then it goes like the tripod, and it becomes more separated. The shots, suddenly you don't see the characters together in the frame. Suddenly they're very separated. So that was kind of one of the ideas we had with the cinematographer, kind of throughout the seasons, to make them very different as well. Each season had its own look, each season had its own kind of thought behind, like you're saying, how we can get characters through. And then in the end, on the final scene, we go back to Steadicam, as the family kind of finds like they're in the dance scene, especially they'll go back to Steadicam, so we get them kind of together again in the frame after all that time being apart. And I think these are little things, but people notice, and I think you kind of, even if you are not paying much attention to cinematography, I think people feel it, and that's what is kind of important to keep in track of all these things.
Any other questions? Yes.
So I kind of have 2 questions.
Only one.
The first one, I guess, is more of a short one. When as you're saying with the cinematography, I did feel that, but it also felt like there were 2 versions of you in this film. What inspired you, as far as with the intention of each frame that you chose for, let's say, the static shots? That's my first question. And then second question was, what was it like to direct 4 crazy characters, like with rehearsals and everything else?
Oh, I'll answer the second one first. I think for me, directing is a lot about, and I think that's most directors anyway. I'm not that special, but most directors is working a lot with the actors and kind of get that collaboration being a very important thing. But I think a lot of times when you're young and you're starting out, it's very daunting to work with the actors, and it's something that I know young filmmakers, especially, and I was like that as well when I was starting out. They kind of want to. They don't understand the actor process, so they kind of they leave them in the corner, and they don't help that much. And I think that was the thing that I was very excited about, because it's only 4 characters really, and we could actually go really in depth with them. And so we did a lot of chemistry tests during the casting process to really make sure that they behaved and they acted like a family, and it felt very real. We did a lot of rehearsal time there, but I think what's interesting about rehearsal, that it's not necessarily, at least in my case, it doesn't have to be to do the scenes that you're going to shoot. It can be just let them figure out the characters, and like for us, we did a lot of, I would give them like a context, a scene that is not in the movie, just something, let's say if you found out your daughter did this in school, and just see how they would behave like that as the characters, and then ask questions about that. And I think that helped a lot for them to fully understand the characters. Something I learned from one of the labs actually, and I did with the actors, which was really cool, was going to the water you know, and with the five of us, me and the actors, would go into the water, cold, but we were there in the ocean trying to survive swimming, and we would ask each other questions as the characters in a specific moment in time, and because you're kind of you're swimming, you know, so your brain is not as present, you're answering more from the subconscious, and that was very interesting, a way to see them understanding the characters and doing things. And we learned a lot, even I learned a lot about my characters as we did the exercises, you know, because you ask questions like, why is he doing this in this moment? How is he feeling in that moment? And then, you know, we're all swimming to figure out that answer. And I think those type of things are where gives me joy as well to do, you know. I think that's one of the things sometimes people, you know, because you're so focused on cinematography, you're so focused on so many other things that are so important as well, but we forget a little bit the actors. And I think those are super important and they help a lot. And I think the acting would have been so much worse if I didn't have these exercises, I would say. And what was the first question again?
First question, basically, what inspired you with the two different versions that I brought up? Like, what films, actors, directors, stories?
I mean, I like Linklater a lot, so this was inspired initially by I remember seeing Boyhood and seeing one of the final scenes of Boyhood with Patricia Arquette, and she says like, oh, you're gonna leave to college and my life is over, but they only have that one scene. And I kind of always saw the movie as kind of a spiritual sequel to Boyhood, you know. I was like, this is like if they had developed that situation and if they had pushed through how it would be, if we actually saw the progress, how it would be. I was inspired a lot by, I like a lot of naturalism dialogue that feels real and feels like people talk. And so I was inspired a lot from Noah Baumbach, you know, he did Marriage Story, Meyerowitz stories. He had lots of interesting movies that I think are quite naturalistic and quite interesting in the way he does it. What else? Let me think. I think I like to watch a lot of sometimes people in how people speak, and I think that's a good thing of like understanding, because sometimes you see that in movies often that you're like, nobody says that. Nobody says it, like nobody says open, and so I think for me it was more interesting to figure out like how people want to say something but they don't say it, you know. And I think that's usually, or that's an interesting thing to think about, because in real life we don't say what we think, you know, a lot of times. Unfortunately, we go around and we find other topics. And so kind of figuring out that and watching my family, I think there was a time I felt a bit of a creep because I was watching my family and I was a bit like, oh, that's interesting. Wait, let me see. Because when I was writing the movie, you know, and I'm like, oh, I see what you said there, but you didn't mean that, you know. And I don't know, it's just those type of things I think are very interesting to kind of figure out.
Now, going back to the acting process, the actors who play the father and the daughter, they're actually related, right?
Yeah, they're actually real life father and daughter. The father is not an actor, at least he wasn't an actor when I cast him. He was a stunt double, and his daughter is the one. It's kind of nepotism reversed, you know. His daughter was the one I had worked with before, and she's a great actress, and I love her. She like won a Portuguese Golden Globe at like 12, you know. So she's amazing. And I remember I was struggling to find the actor for that role because, you know, it needs to be a person who's funny, but also a person who's able to then deliver on the sentimental part, and, you know, sometimes it's a bit hard to find the right person for that. And I remember meeting him at a party where she was there, and I remember talking to him, and I was like, ah, this guy I feel like he's if only if he could act, it would be great. And so then I actually did kind of a hidden casting where I told her to pretend she didn't get the role and tell her dad to help her in this audition tape and record like an audition tape with her father, but pretend it was for her, and tell her father to give it all, you know, give it as if you were performing to help her. And so that's how I actually saw him acting, and I kind of thought, that's cool. And then we did some chemistry tests for real, and I think he still doesn't know this, but a lot of those chemistry tests that I was already looking for him, I would tell her, just bring your dad, tell him that you kind of were missing out a person, and let's just see how your dad behaves with other people. Because anyway, I didn't want to put that pressure on the person who doesn't have that much experience to straight away be like, oh, you know, be great for me and I'm watching you. And so I think because because he didn't have that pressure, he was able to be very natural. And that helped a lot, and I was like, okay, I think I can work with him, and I did a lot of tests, and I think I could work with him, and that's how it came about. Reverse nepotism, guys, that's how it works.
Are there any other questions in the audience? Yes.
I love every like train scene. I thought those were awesome, and they like kind of wrapped up the every scene that happened in that season was kind of super like focused in that little train scene. You can see everything that had happened in like 25, 30 minutes in like 2 seconds. So what was like your inspiration for the like having the train as like the motif of one of the motifs of like the movie?
I remember when I used to go leave, I used to take not the train, I used to take the plane, and I remember as always, I feel like the moments of going out and coming back always felt like they say so much, because it's the first time you see them after a long time, and you're like, oh shit, my dad, is different, or my mom looks a bit older, and I think that touches you, and I think that was what I wanted to convey with that, and that was one of the biggest challenges of the movie, because the movie goes throughout 1 year. It's like, how do I convey to the people that 3 months have passed in between that, and how can people actually feel that difference? And so that's why I put a lot of emphasis on the train scenes and kind of how the family relationship is different in each moment, and how they look different, and in their clothes and things like that. Because in a way that's our first introduction, that's our first thing. So I think that was kind of the main inspiration, was me going back and seeing that the first time you see a family, even though you see them on Skype or Zoom now, but like it's not the same, and then you see them in real life. I think one of the inspirations for the movie, I was telling Theo the other day that I watched this when very early on, before I even had an idea for the movie. I watched a short film in a festival in London, and it was they just basically had the documentary. She took a picture every day, and this girl throughout 1 year, and you just see picture, but because you're watching every day, you don't see the differences, you don't see the changes. But then in the end of the documentary, she shows the first picture and the last picture together, and you see the big change that she went through throughout that 1 year. And I remember that touched me a lot, and I remember thinking like, that's how I'm not going to see the changes of my mom. I'm just going to see the difference. I'm not going to see the progress. I'm just going to see, and suddenly she's going to look different. And I remember thinking about that a lot, and so that's why that influenced a lot of that kind of feeling when you suddenly cut for 3 months later, and you're like, oh, they look different. Oh, what the hell happened here? And also it creates a question in your mind as a viewer to be like, oh, let me want to figure out why they are like this. What has changed in this time.
We have time for 1 or 2 more questions in the audience. Well, I have a question. So what's next for Autumn? Where does it go from here? It had its debut at Austin Film Festival, right?
Yeah, we got to the audience award at Austin Film Festival, which was crazy. We were like...
This is your first film.
It's my first feature, my first feature. I've been working a lot of shorts. I did like a little TV series, and then I kind of decided, and I've been talking to a lot of people here, young people, that I kind of just decided I need to do a feature. That's the story I want to tell, and I know why I want to tell it. And so I just went and did it, and I kind of had that approach of like, I'm going to do it even if I don't have any money, and people will come on board eventually. And I think that was a good approach, and that kind of, you're just going to do it, and suddenly people come along. And then we managed to somehow, the movie got selected to the Austin Film Festival and won an award there, which was crazy. We were a tiny movie, and it's in Portuguese. All the movies are like in English as well, so we didn't think it would relate to audiences, but somehow it did as well. And then we had a national, like in Portugal, theatrical release, like in the cinemas, which was amazing as well to see people's reactions, because then you see real Portuguese people, how they are reacting to your movie, and I don't know, it's amazing to see it with an audience. I think that's why cinema and what the cinema experience is such an important thing. I try to fight for it to not be lost, even though I know that it's so much easier to just watch something at home. But I think that there's something communal about us watching together, something that suddenly it feels bigger than us. It makes us really think about it. We don't go on our phones as often. We're able to fully be immersed in the story. And so that's been kind of my track is going to see it in other places and see it with other people and kind of hearing people's reaction to it. I think it's really cool. And now we're gonna go to Vietnam in a couple of weeks to show it there. I don't know how the Vietnamese are gonna, if they relate to any of these jokes about codfish and stuff, but we'll see.
That's exciting. That's great. Well, I want to thank you again for coming. And another round of applause for Antonio, please.
Thank you guys. Thank you for coming. Thank you.